Hi, we are from Group 5 and our members is Muhammad Akil Haikal, Muhammad Zaid, Ahmad Hasif, Hana Levia Jubatai and me, Aina Madiha. So we are doing Mexico. So Mexico officially known as the United States of Mexico or in Mexican Estados Unidos Mexicanos, and it's a federal republic between the Pacific in west and the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico East. Mexico is bordering the United States in north and Belize and Guatemala in southeast, and it's also share maritime borders with Cuba and Honduras. So the country covers an area of nearly 2 million kilometers. Compare it almost 4 times the size of Spanish, of slightly than 3 times the size of the United States of Texas. Mexico is the third largest nation in Latin America after Brazil and Argentina. So the population is around 123.5 million people in 2070, making Mexico the second most populous country in Latin America after Brazil, and the most populous Spanish-speaking country in the world. So the capital and largest city is Mexico City. So Mexico is a country with a variety ethnic groups where Mexican Mestizo are the largest group with about 62%, followed by predominantly Amerindians with 20% Amerindians, which is the indigenous people of the Americans, and 7% and people with European background, which is 9%. So it's famous because of introduction of the chocolate, corn, and chilies to the world. It's also famous for tequila, which is a liqueur for which Mexican is famous is because of because it's made from the native blue agave plant. And Mexico City was built over ruins of Tenochtitlan, which is Great Aztec city. And Mexico has the world's second highest number of Catholic after Brazil. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, Miss Baiti. I am Ahmad Asif. I will explain about the negotiation process in Mexico. So, what is negotiation process? Negotiation process is a process in which two or more parties attempt to reach an agreement on the course of action or the terms of a deal. It involves communication, collaboration, and problem solving to find a mutually acceptable solution. So, negotiation process is a process in which two or more parties attempt to reach an agreement on a course of action or the terms of a deal. It involves communication, collaboration, and problem solving to find a mutually acceptable solution. Our chosen country is Mexico. So, in Mexico, negotiation is a common practice in both business and personal interactions. There are some processes that may be followed when negotiating with Mexican people. There are 5 negotiation process. The first one is establish trust and build a relationship. In Mexican culture, trust and personal relationships are important in negotiation process. Building a strong relationship with the other party can help create a more positive and productive negotiation. The second one is be open and flexible. Mexican culture values open communication and flexibility in negotiations. It is important to listen to other parties' perspective and be open to finding creative solutions that meet both parties' needs. Number 3, prepare and research. It is important to thoroughly research and prepare for the negotiation, including understanding the other party's needs, interests, and expectations. Number 4, use indirect communication. In Mexican culture, it is common to use indirect communication, such as using nonverbal cues and avoiding direct confrontation. This may involve using subtle or indirect language or engaging in small talk before getting to the main negotiation points. And the last one is consider the role of hierarchy. Hierarchy and respect for authority may play a role in Mexican negotiations. So it is important to be aware of the relative power dynamics between the parties and to show respect for the other party's position. So that's all from me about the negotiation process. Next, I will pass on to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Akil Haikal and I would like to talk about beginning behavior in Mexico.
People from Mexico are often smart and aggressive when they negotiate. They often bargain because they are used to giving in to hard demands. During the procedure, people may feel a lot of strong emotion and exaggerate a lot. There could be a long time between each offer. Making concession is never easy, and even though Mexicans may be open to new ideas and thought, they often find it hard to change their mind. If you don't do it right, asking from a compromise could become a matter of pride. Be polite throughout the negotiation. It might be better to work out these agreements in follow-up meeting than to keep pushing for compromises, since this gives your opponents a chance to change their minds without feeling to embrace. Effective negotiators may be able to change prices by 40% or more from the first offer to the final agreement. You can lie and send fake non-government posts, act like you are not interested in agreement and as a whole, or in certain concessions, inflate the value of an item or make up fake demands and concessions. In order to get an edge in negotiations, your Mexican opponents may act stupid or try to trick you in other ways. Don't take these strategies personally, and don't lie to or intentionally mislead your competitors, because that could hurt your business relationship. Negotiators in the country may use pressure tactics like making final offer, putting a time limit on negotiations, showing that they won't give in, or labeling most final offers are not final and they can come in more than one. Mexican negotiators don't use tactics that are too openly hostile and aggressive. When they do this, they will be careful not to seem violent, even if they use soft-spoken anger or bad threats and warning. Attitudinally, bargaining and trying to make you feel guilty are two common and sometimes effective ways to use emotion negotiates. But when you use any of these strategies, be careful not to hurt someone's sense of self-worth, personal connections, and others' emotional appeals, like pointing out how your idea will make the other person feel more fulfilled or raise their status, can be very effective. Corruption and bribery are somewhat common in Mexico public and private sectors. Laws pertaining to bribery are also less stringent than in many other countries. People may draw the line differently, viewing minor payments as reward for getting a job done or unofficially service charge rather than as bribes. Also, keep in mind that there is a fine line between giving gift and bribing. What you may consider a bribe, a Mexican could simply view a nice gift.
Moving on to the decision-making culture in Mexico. My name is Muhammad Zaid, and I'm going to explain about the decision-making culture in Mexico. So, Mexican decision-making procedures are quite hierarchical. So, what does hierarchical mean? Hierarchical decision-making involves making decisions on the basis of formal positions of authority, which means the higher position group have more authority in making decisions for the company. With that being said, decisions are usually made by a small number of individuals at the top of hierarchy in many traditional Mexican companies. If a Mexican company sends its junior people to deal with negotiators, it is probably a sign of lack of genuine interest. Therefore, it is always best to match levels of seniority during any interactions. However, this does not mean that negotiator efforts with lower level officers are not important, but it does mean that negotiators should spend time in making sure that they know who the decision makers are and assess the feedback that they are receiving from the subordinates. Furthermore, it also means that you should have flexibility in your approach and proposals for the important meetings with top officials in Mexican companies. So, that is the Mexican decision-making culture for companies in Mexico. That's all from me. Thank you.
So today I'll be talking about the communication styles in Mexico. So in Mexico, although English is widely spoken, but it is very risky to expect that all business associates will be able to speak good English. So if you can learn Spanish, it would be a really good catch. You would be a really good catch. So their communication styles could be parted into two, which is verbal and also non-verbal. So for verbal, under the indirect communication, okay, Mexicans, they expect to avoid, they always avoid the word no. Like when it comes to no, they always say something else like, let me see what I can do, or maybe, or give us some time. They don't actually straightforwardly tell you no. That's one thing. And for their language style, they prefer to be really polite. Like they have like names or pronouns for certain people. Like let's say a grandfather, they call them abuelo, and grandmother they call abuela, and like anything, like anyone, it could be uncle or auntie, they have their own pronouns. And moving on, for groups, like wherever there's social situations, they prefer to have a very friendly conversation, like no matter which groups they are in. Like let's say if someone said something funny, they expect us to join them and laugh with them. That's how they communicate with each other, and that's how they interact with each other. So for the non-verbal part, let's say physical contact. Okay, for physical contact, they expect us to stand closer. Like they would prefer standing closer to each other when we are talking about business, because they think that is more polite and that is more hospitable. And they also have like body language, like they prefer eye contact no matter who it is. So because so they can believe you, so they can have so you can earn trustworthiness from them. Like if you are having too much distance, they believe that you are very standoffish or untrustworthy. And that is all about the communication styles in Mexico. Thank you very much.
My name is Aina Madiha binti Ahmad Suhaimi. My ID number is 62225222324. So I will continue with the conflict management in Mexico. So, what is conflict? So, conflict should not be avoided, rather it should be managed. And it is the presence, difference, or disagreement. As a result, as long as humans differ from one another, there will be always conflict. However, having disagreement does not necessitate being violent and loud. We can disagree peacefully if we use mature conflict resolutions technique. So, peace is not simply the absence of the conflict, rather peace means resolving difference peacefully through means such as dialogue, education, and knowledge. Thus, communication is the most effective means of delivering resolutions. So, conflict must be understood theoretically in multicultural environments, such as in American mandate in Mexico. Cultural values influence behavior according to Hostive cultural dimension theory, which is a framework for cross-cultural communications. Individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, power distance, which is strength of social hierarchy, and masculinity versus femininity are the four dimensions of cultural values, which is task orientation versus person orientations. So these four dimensions can be contrasted by using them in the 5 steps of resolving conflict. So this is the first one. The conflict scenes. Emotions are more outwardly expressed in Mexican society, which is more communal than American culture. Competition and conflict may therefore increase in frequency and aggressivity. Avoid competitiveness and confrontations if at all feasible, while American teams leaders have the option of being more ritualistic than competitive. Second, the gathering information. Because information has emotional value in Mexican culture, it is kept more secret, and an employee relationship with the company is also more emotional, while an employee in American culture is emotionally independent of the company and information has a relative value. Third, the agreement with the problem. So it is important in Mexican culture for an employee to agree with the leader. As a result, someone is to blame for a failure, while in American culture, it is not important for an employee to agree with the manager. And when a mistake occurs, it is often the system is to blame, not the individual. Fourth, the solution finding activity. So most Mexicans culturally resist change and are risk averse and fear failure, while Americans are more likely to welcome change, to take risks, and to hope for success. So as a result, Mexican may appear more reserved, whereas American may appear more welcoming. And the fifth is the negotiations of solutions. Because loyalty is positive virtue in Mexican culture, company rules should not be broken. This also means that people are less willing to make concessions. In the contrary, in American culture, loyalty is viewed as relative virtue. Rules can be changed for legitimate reason, and people are more willing to compromise. So, for example, an American manager working in Mexico understands the additional effort required to resolve conflict peacefully. By understanding Hostive cultural dimension theory and putting it into the practice in the 5 stage of conflict resolution is a good place to start. So, everyone should train themselves to analyze every incident in order to become more acquainted with these 4 values. So there are no 2 incidents that are identical, and for sure take note of them so that you can use them as a reference in the future. So that's from me. Thank you.